Hi, I'm Dan Schmitt. I do a weekly television show called Team Chicago Challenge. My website for the motorcycle show is teamchicago.tv. My website, my political website, is walkwithdan.com. I was a candidate in the 5th Congressional District in the state of Illinois in 2012, Republican candidate. I'm a well-known Republican. Today we're going to talk about what is left and what is the right. Now, one reason I find is very important to get into this discussion is my brother Bob, smart guy. When he took the entrance test at St. George High School, he was #1. When he graduated, he was probably #1 or 2. Then he went to Notre Dame and graduated from there with a degree in computer science, if I'm not mistaken. Then he did his 4 years in the United States Marine Corps flying Phantom jets. And you got to be pretty smart to fly jets. There's no doubt about it. Even our former president, George Bush, he flew jets. So just that alone shows that you got to be on the ball in order to be involved with $1 million, 10, 20, 30, 40 million dollar jets. I mean, the government would not allow you in a jet unless you're a pretty smart person. Okay. But I had a discussion with my brother Bob, and I one time mentioned that I'm further to the right than Rush Limbaugh. And my brother said, "What, you're like a Nazi?" And I'm like, "Bob, the Nazis were not on the right, even though if you talk to 90% of the media, 99.9% of the people working for the Tribune, sometimes they will say, no, the Nazis were right and the communists on the left." And this was my argument with my brother Bob. He said, well, why were the Nazis fighting the communists in Germany in the 1920s and 1930s? They were fighting for the control of the country. The Nazis were a National Socialist Party. They are on the left. They believe in big government. So I'm going to be the guy, this is for everybody, if you work at the Tribune, sometimes ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, whatever. I'm going to be the guy that finally establish exactly what is the right and what is the left. Regardless of what you might have heard in the past, let's put it straight what it means, if you're on the right or if you're on the left. And I'll even put a little comment, in fact, let me mark it here. Muslims and the Soviets. We'll get back to that too. Okay. In a perfect world, what is the right? The right is less government, personal responsibility, people depending on themselves. The less you need government, the further you are on the right. That's the common accepted idea. Small government as people on the right. On the left is people who want more government, more control. So, what is the perfect world? What would be the perfect world? What would be all the way over here on the right, say? On the right here, the extreme right. All the way over here would be a farmer. He owns 200 or 300 acres. He's farming 500 or 600, maybe 1,000 more. That's the way he can afford the equipment he's got. He's got animals, he's raising chicken, he's raising pigs, he's raising a couple beef cows, he's got a couple dairy cows, he can be totally independent. Now there's people out there say, well, what about these farmers that depend on farm subsidies? This guy doesn't depend. Farmers only depend on farm subsidies because they don't control their prices. If they controlled their prices, they wouldn't need any subsidies. If they could charge what it costs to raise their crop. And the other reason there are farm subsidies, just show this little confusion out there, is that we need to eat. So if the government, the federal government, state governments are involved a little bit with agriculture, is because we need to eat in order to exist. So there is a reason to have farmers supported by the government to an extent. So anyhow, the far right would be this farmer all the way over here. Doesn't even need anybody. Diesels. He could be raising peanuts. You know, in 1904 at the World's Fair in St. Louis, they demonstrated a diesel motor and it ran on peanut oil. You could run diesel engines on a whole list of different fuels. So this guy would not need the federal government. So he would be the extreme right. Needs nobody, got family, got community. On the extreme left would be nuns or monks. People that are dedicated to Jesus Christ, dedicated to God. They don't have to own anything. Complete community, complete communion of the people. That's maybe where the word communism, community, if you're extremely on the left. The furthest left would be monks, cloistered monks, nuns, cloistered nuns. They own nothing. They're dedicated to God. They can share. Okay, would that work in a real society? No, because people want things. This is part of our freedom. Our freedom, man is born with freedom. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Every human being has that in their DNA. So they don't really want to give up things. People really do want to own things. That's part of the human nature. I forget which one of the founding fathers who said, if men were angels, you would not need government. But men are not angels. So the extreme left would be monks, nuns, giving up everything for Jesus. So who's in the middle? Let me give you a good example of someone I think would be in the middle. Bill O'Reilly, maybe a fraction on this side of to the right. Bill O'Reilly. He is from Fox News. He swears that he's not a complicated guy, he's not a very smart guy, and I sort of agree with him, because he even thinks President Obama's really smart. He even thinks Jon Stewart is real smart. I think those guys are goofballs, especially Jon Stewart. So Bill O'Reilly, I would say, is in almost the center, maybe a smidget off of center. Rush Limbaugh, where's Rush Limbaugh fall? Well, he would fall somewhere about right here, Rush. And where would I fall? I'm further to the right, Dan. Now, why would I say I'm further to the right than Rush Limbaugh? Rush Limbaugh depends on the federal government in order to get his radio show around the country because of the FCC controlling the airwaves. Because if I was going to put together an outlaw radio in my backyard and put a tower up and I wanted to broadcast in the Chicago area, I'd want to broadcast at 89, one of the most popular spots, or 72, which would be WGN, or WIND, one of those, 56. I wouldn't be broadcasting out here, but then the federal government, the FBI would be here, and I would be arrested. They would take down the tower. I'd be in court for the next 25 years. So Rush does benefit from the federal government. Now you say, how am I on public access television? Public access television is an agreement between the cable companies and the general public. I know in Chicago we got the city government sort of involved, but the reality is the cable companies have to come up with the money. We allow the cable companies to use our poles. I have a pole in my backyard. Cable company gets to use it. In exchange for the cable companies using our poles, it's not the airwaves, but they get to use our poles. They have to come up with the money to allow people like me to get the training, to get the time, the space, and even though I have my own equipment, but still, that's where I'm a little bit further to the right. And because I raised a family, I have grandkids, I've traveled this country, I'm just a regular, ordinary guy. I'm much more to the right than Rush Limbaugh because he depends on more people than I do. Okay, so that's where Rush is, that's me. Ronald Reagan. I'd say Ronald Reagan is right smack dab in the both of us. And the reason being, you've heard recently, that's why Reagan's name comes up, our dear President Reagan, maybe the greatest president of the 20th century, the man that won the Cold War without firing a shot, with the help of Margaret Thatcher from England and the Pope, so, which was John Paul II. So, Ronald Reagan, I was watching from 1967 an interview on TV where he kept saying, we have to allow the government to the people. Let the people decide. I'm going to go back to the people. Ronald Reagan is the original Tea Party Republican. No doubt about it. If you know what the Tea Party stands for, the Constitution, small government, less spending, less taxes, the government closest to you. In Ronald Reagan's mind, the most powerful political person should be in Chicago, the alderman. If you live in some village, it should be one of the village trustees. It should not be Washington, D.C. Isn't it Ronald Reagan that said, the most scary words you can hear is, I am from the government and I am here to help you. No, Ronald Reagan, dear Ronald Reagan, was as far to the right as Rush and myself. Okay, John F. Kennedy. You know, I was in the 6th grade with Miss Mary Ann. She brought in her portable TV, and I got to see his inauguration speech where John F. Kennedy says, ask not what the country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So John Ann, he wanted to cut taxes. He brought taxes down from 70%, I believe, the top rate in the federal tax, down to 50%. Then Ronald Reagan brought them all the way down to 28%. So John F. Kennedy, and he was anti-communist. He was a war hero. I mean, a real, honest-to-goodness war hero. No doubt about it. He saved his crew. He put his life on the line. So I'm going to put JFK right here. He was definitely on the right. He wanted to cut taxes. He wanted business to succeed. The rising tide lifts all boats is John F. Kennedy. Not quite as to the far right as myself or Ronald Reagan or Rush, but definitely JFK is on the right. Now, he was succeeded by Lyndon Baines Johnson. Now, Lyndon Baines Johnson beat Goldwater, but Goldwater was not running against Lyndon Baines Johnson. Goldwater was running against the martyr, John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So, but he believed government, get people hooked on government. So LBJ would have been right here. He's right there on the left. LBJ, government, solutions, great society. He's pretty far out to Roosevelt. Now, if you talk to people my age or a little bit older than me, they have this mystique that Roosevelt was a great president. I'm talking about FDR in the 30s. The Great Depression. Well, it was his policies, believe me. FDR's policy is what made it the Great Depression. So he was maybe a little bit more left, FDR. Further to the left than LBJ. In fact, he would make statements like, well, we don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to fix it. No plans. It was, believe me, the reason the Great Depression existed was because of FDR. Okay, now, let's go really to the left as far as the Democrats. We got to go back to Woodrow Wilson. And I'm surprised that I've grown up and going Our Lady of Mercy, how these nuns and these teachers looked up to Woodrow Wilson because he was a college professor. He was such an intellectual. He was a progressive. He was the beginning of the problems. Wilson might have been all the way over here. He believed that government was the solution. And Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, when he ran as the bull moose, now, was he ever on the right? I don't think so. He did believe in government. So we're going to have to put Teddy, maybe not extreme as Wilson, but Teddy goes about here. Teddy Roosevelt was definitely on the left. He was a progressive. Progressives are on the left. Now, let's go to Mussolini, the fascist. During the time, Depression, what did he do? He got the trains running. He believed in big government. He was a fascist. The fascists were on the left. Mussolini was right here. Now, what about the Nazis? Going back to my argument with my brother Bob. The Nazis believed in big government. So, but they allowed free enterprise. They allowed their good boys, the good old crew, if you were in with the party, you succeeded, you could still own your home. How did they finance everything? They had to conquer other countries, and they had to rob the Jews. What would you say? They would, first they would turn the people against the Jews, and then they used that as excuse to steal the money from the Jews. They said, the reason we cannot succeed is because these people are not participating. So the Nazis were definitely right here on the left. No doubt about it. They believe National Socialist Party is on the left. Okay. George Bush. Let's go George Bush Sr. Now, when he ran, he said no new taxes. But he came up with this idea that he was going to be a compassionate conservative. So if this is the center, if this is Bill O'Reilly, George Bush the elder was just a little bit to the right of O'Reilly, not much, just a smidgen. And his son, they say, oh, he was to the right. I mean, you listen to even his advisors, George Bush, and he was a good president as far as I'm concerned. If people would really look at the real situation, not only 9/11, but also what took place with the Gulf War and all that. He had to go in Iraq. He had to go into Afghanistan. But he did cut taxes because, and then we'll be getting into the Clinton thing in another second. If more money is taken in on taxes then the government is spending, you should cut taxes to level that out. So the spending and the expenses are equalized. So he did cut taxes, made a lot of people mad, and I don't know why. I don't know what's with a lot of these people, because even the poor, even the middle class, even the regular Americans benefited with his tax cuts. So he was a little bit more right than his father, not much. Bill Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton appears to be a conservative to the right, but really, remember, he put his wife in charge of the health care. So he believed in, if you look at Hillary Clinton's health care plan, it was extreme. They wanted to control doctors. They wanted to control what medical schools you went to. They wanted to control where you were going to be assigned. Just that alone puts him. Now, I'll put Bill Clinton right here, and his wife right here. But between the two of them, bad. It's all bad. Now, he did inherit a great economy. They did balance the budget because, sort of balance the budget, because he did have a good friend in the House. And when Newt took over in the House, Bill Clinton had to negotiate with him. They did come close to balancing the budget. If they would have stuck to, at least, if we would right now reduce our spending to what the money we spent in 2009, 2008, we could balance the budget. We got to cut down on the spending. So we got Bill Clinton, Bush's. Okay, now the real. Where does Mao? Mao, these people, Mao Zedong from China, they are the extreme left. Right there, because they would kill you to drag you in. They will take your property away. They will kill you if you don't want to give your property up. They believe everybody should share everything except maybe the leadership. So Mao is here. Lenin is right there, right with Mao, on the extreme, on the extreme. So that brings us back to, well, let's throw in quickly, Beck, Glenn Beck. Beck would be about here, radio guy, Glenn Beck, to the right, a good guy, does a lot of research, no doubt about it, got great research staff. Michael Medved, who's on the radio, right? He's barely with OReilly. I mean, he says, I'm a conservative. And anybody can say they're a conservative, but Medved is right there. And finally, where is our president? Well, let me say this. Our president said, just recently, he said, we have been trying for 100 years to get this national health care done. Who is the we, Mr. President? Who is the we that we have been trying? Who are you identifying with, Mr. President? Are you identifying with, well, FDR? Are you identifying with Wilson? Are you identifying with the socialists in Europe? Do you think that you have the right to take away my right to buy insurance? You think you can tell me? No. Our president, President Obama, is right here on the left. He is as extreme as your Wilsons, your LBJ, your FDRs, all his buddies. They can, so, I mean, he may allow some personal ownership, and he will deny, because he's made a lot of money with his books, he would never admit how far to the, I mean, I'm just waiting for the day when he finally cuts honest with us and tells us exactly how far to the left he really is. So that's how I'm going to conclude. Remember my name, Dan Schmitt. Go to YouTube, Dan Schmitt, 2 T's, SCHMITT. My website is my email is teamdan45@gmail.com if you want to send me a comment. Political website is walkwithdan.com. And my motorcycle racing is teamchicago.tv. I hope you've learned something. I'm going to be doing other things. We're going to talk about economics. I hope to educate our new Pope. The new Pope, Pope Francis. You know, he's from Argentina. I don't know that much about Argentina as far as property rights, ownership, but I can say this. I feel he is as ill-educated as President Obama and a lot of other so-called intellectual people. As far as growing up in Argentina, exactly what does that mean? I don't know. I have to look into that. I understand Mexico, ownership of property is the biggest problem in Central America, Mexico, definitely Brazil, but I cannot say anything about Argentina, except I do know that Argentina under Perot was a fascist government. So even though they made a great play, Aviva Perot, they were all fascists. So that's it. Dan Schmitt, TeamChicago.tv, walkwithdan.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something by paying attention exactly what is the right and what is the left.